Welcome everybody to what I call my free cast series. Basically, free online events that can be anything from today, which is the celebration of my father's 75th birthday. Um, you know, it's obviously still a raw time for all of us as we kind of navigate this new era of at least for me personally, being without my primary mentor and driving force in this world. um I prepared a short video last night that is going to be kind of my thank you and happy birthday to him, and show you guys some footage. It's real short, and then after that I want to open it up to hear some stories. But before I officially get started, since there's a lot of people here, I want to call on somebody just to say a few words. Mr. Joe Lau, welcome.
Can you hear me? I don't know if you
Hmm.
can hear me. Okay. How's it going?
Excellent.
You look good.
Welcome. Thank you. Beautiful and sunny here. So how are
It's
you these
windy.
days?
It's windy here in Jersey.
Yeah, we are experiencing the odd winter here in Oregon. It's been sunny so many days in a row. I'm terrified for fire season.
Mm.
Well, thank you for joining, Joe. Joe is a longtime Trekker family friend. He's in some of my earliest memories, and I think a while back when he so graciously did a benefit class for my organization, I told a story. One of my earliest memories is I swear I remember Joe running through the Pine Barrens, doing a front flip up onto the hood of the old Suburban, and then catapult from there up into a tree. Now,
Probably.
that may have been my, like, five-year-old imagination, but I was like, "Oh my god, he is a ninja." So, thank you, Joe, for being part of the longtime family. Deb Tremmel, I wanna hear from you. I haven't seen your smiley face in a long time, and I wanna hear your voice.
Hi there, love. It's so nice to see you.
Hello, my friend. It's been too long, we need to chat.
Yeah.
Welcome, welcome. Oh, it's so good to see so many faces. Let's see here. I call on next Mr. David Ott. Say hello to the audience.
Hey, good to be here. Uh,
Captain Goatee. We're seeing who's going to get the white beard first. I have no gray hair, it's just all in my beard.
yeah, I have a lot of
Ah.
gray hair, so
Yeah,
good to see you, Tommy. Thanks for doing
yeah,
this.
thank you for joining. Let's see who else here. Why can't I see everybody? Oh, it's because I've never had this many people in there Zoom before. Let's see. Oh, more people keep entering. Yeah, let's see. I'll call on some other folks, once we get to the story portion. Welcome, everybody. So, I am currently in the northwest side of Portland, Oregon. It is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful sunny day here. Definitely not apropos weather for this time of year. But I really wanted to do this event outside, even though I am in suburbia. Yeesh. uh and so I'm glad that the unseen eternal has decided to bless us with yet another nice sunny day here, so I could fulfill that part of my want for this birthday celebration. I My father and I have had a interesting relationship um, over the years. Both as being a son to him, a student of his, and then an employee of his. Uh, I've experienced the man from every angle there is, and one thing I love about him is the lessons just keep on. Every year that I grow and evolve, it's like I can peel back another layer of that onion and expose, a lesson he taught me when I was 6 or 7 years old. and now some of this stuff I'm in possession of, his writings, which I'll read after we do a short break in a little bit, have really clarified a lot of those lessons. Um, so as I mentioned, I left tracker school in 2009 to, go find my own face, as they say. Even though I had plenty of experience, I'd been teaching there for almost a decade, and plus my lifetime growing up in the world of nature connection. I wanted more. I wanted to experience more. So for the last however many years it's been since 2009, I have been either teaching, building a place to teach at, or teaching, or yeah, then more teaching. And then now these last few years, a whole bunch of new wonderful business skills, which I'm definitely not a business human. That's why I have a playlist in my YouTube channel called Tom Brown the Third's Field Guide to Business for People Born in the Wrong Century. Because whew, there's a lot to know. So throughout that time, I've also sought out doing a lot of self work around being emotionally intelligent. Um, I put a lot of work into that. And thanks to personal work and the guidance of a few key elders and my former partner, um, I have learned how to be able to express myself in my full range of emotions and recognize them in others. And that only helps to elevate my teaching and understand a lot more about the way of the coyote. And one last thing I'll say is that, right at the start of the pandemic, out of the blue, my dad just started texting me every morning and said, telling me he loved me, and he would send me a photograph that he took, and then I would go out that day and take a photo and send it to him. Because they were always, I'm on the West Coast. He got up at 4 a.m. So, I would always wake up, and the first thing I could be counted on was seeing that message. And I just realized this when I was fiddling with my phone before, but trying to get it to work as a webcam, that in my favorites, like, I still have my mom and my dad as, number one and number two, and on their phone numbers. And this was a hard year for me, particularly as a child of my parents, as this was the first year that I didn't get to talk to both of them on my birthday or hear from them on my birthday. So, I'm very much still learning how to process through a lot of this grief. But this isn't so much about grief as celebration, because as Yoda says, luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. And I take great solace in the fact that my father is omnipresent, and he has been providing me with some guidance. Hence the illustration auction, which benefits the tracker school and the efforts to preserve the primitive camp and my works as well. And that was his idea. And I tell the story in a previous thing. But so I wanted to share. There's somebody I haven't seen in a long time. Oh, wait, I see Mr. John Young down there. John, you have anything you want to say? I didn't see you at first. I'm on my.
Yeah, can you hear me? Because it
Yep.
looks like, yeah, okay, great. Well, first of all, happy birthday, Tom. Happy birthday. It's the first time we don't get to say that to him, where he's going to pick up that message or whatever, but just really thinking about him a lot. And I'm grateful that you're holding this space here, Tommy. This is great. Really nice to see so many of you that I know, and hello to those who I haven't met yet. And yeah, just been thinking about Tom all day and all he's done for all of us. And, it's just, where would we be? Just think about it if it wasn't for the gift of that man in our lives. Um, and and the gifts keep giving. I think you spoke to that, Tommy.
Mhm.
But, the lessons keep deepening, and it's like, yeah, he's left in one form, but he's not gone. That's for sure. I feel that really strongly, and really, really glad you're gathering. And think Sarah and I will only be able to be here till 2. So if you want me to tell a story, call on me before that.
Yeah. Funnily enough about that, originally this was supposed to be an hour-long event, but for some reason I must have chosen a 2-hour template. So it might not run the full 2 hours, but yeah, I'll definitely call on you. But yeah, speaking of that, you know, uh, I just think not only of our ancestors and their perfection of the skills that many of us teach, because if they weren't good at the skills, we wouldn't be here at this point in space and time to have this meeting. And then, I think, and this little video I'm about to show explain a lot how without him, everything I am, everything I have, every person I know, every relationship is all born of him and the tracker school, my roots, as I say. And as a tree, I can't grow if my roots aren't watered, which is why it's important to me with this illustration auction to send as much as I can back east to keep that fire alive. And then I'll be back there in the spring to help out with things for as a volunteer. So let me pull up this video real quick. Hopefully it works. All right, can everybody see my logo? I just want to get a thumbs up from somebody before I hit
Yep.
play. All right. So there's definitely some typos in here. So my editors, keep this was me. You'll see. Enjoy. Can everybody hear the music?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, happy birthday, you old bastard.
I recorded
Oh
this
my
1 year ago
God.
today.
Cannot believe it
It's audio.
that you are where you are and I am where I am. I'm 45 years old and you are 74 years old. And I can still so vividly remember back as a little kid on the original farm. I remember one time you and I took a walk. I was probably 6 years old, and we found an artist conch mushroom on the ground, and you helped me write my name on the back of it, Tom Brown III. And I still have that. It is one of my most sacred and cherished items that I own. Yeah, I want to thank you for all that you've given me and the many gifts throughout the years. But you gave me the greatest gift of all, and that is the gift of a global community. Um, People who have become my family, become my friends, become my wives. That there is not one single area of my life that is not influenced by you in some way or another. And I also want to let you know that need not, you need not carry any burdens for anything that happened in the past. The past is gone. But remember, all we are is now. Happy birthday. Love you. Celeste, I love you too.
He's really terrified. Typo. Oh, ah. So did you guys hear the audio right in the audio recording?
Yep.
Is that what I actually so I was as I was hunting around for different pieces of footage last night, I came upon this file on my hard drive, it said happy birthday dad. And I went in and there were two audio recordings I made today last year that I put together in a clip and sent to him. And as at the time he was he wasn't doing super, but I did not expect that, once August came, what would happen was going to happen. But yeah, as I kind of put this event together in my head and thought about which stories to tell and which lessons have the most profound effect on me and the most profound effect on us as one world family, because that concept of the way of the caretaker is, yeah, he spoke about it often, but I don't think people truly understand, or many people don't understand the concept of I call it the capital C caretaker. Just like there are small t trackers and capital T trackers, um, there are both with caretakers. Now, it's funny how we are the only animal on the planet. We have all this wonderful technology and vehicles we can hop in and be anywhere in a couple hours or hop on a plane, but we have to contemplate the meaning of life and silly things like that when the rest of nature just wakes up and goes about its day doing what it was designed to do. And if there's one thing that my lifetime in this field has shown me, is that the way to truly be a human is to be that caretaker in all of your doings. And that all ties in with tracking and awareness, two of my two favorite skills, because we don't need to be in the vast wilderness to work on our tracking and our awareness skills. My father used to tell countless stories, and I'm sure the former instructors who are here, would often get one of my dad's quizzes if you went somewhere with him. He'd ask you how many people were in the store, how many people had hats on, and all these things that he did to me as a kid, and many of us here that at the time we thought, oh god, another sit spot, oh, how many times is he going to mention this? One thing I learned about my father early on is that if he brings up something more than once or twice or three times, it's not just to create busy work or fill dead space. There's a very particular reason to it. As he said, there's a method to his madness and a madness to his method. And in my experience, if we are here for one purpose, it is to caretake our only home, the earth, to caretake each ourselves so that we can caretake each other. And I often tie it in with the thought and concept of tool usage. A hammer is a tool. Hammer can be used to build a house for somebody, and it can be also used to injure somebody. I myself am a tool of nature and of the vision and of creation. And if I am not well oiled and sharpened and maintained, then the products that I create as a tool, i.e., my classes and my students, are going to suffer. And my dear friend Clementine, who's in this meeting, was one of my greatest teachers in that lesson. Um, when I was going just without taking care of myself or doing anything just to try to make it by while dealing with the loss of both of my parents and a few other mishaps. Um, so if we don't maintain ourselves as tools, as caretakers, then we cannot be at our best. And every time when I leave, I try to, no matter how I'm feeling, if I'm in a bad mood, I suit up and I put on a smile and I go out into the world and I try to be helpful wherever I can. Whether it's a simple act of holding a door for somebody, helping somebody who's in need, in whatever capacity you're able to, based on the what you have available to you, making somebody's day easier. Uh, I've literally in the last 4 months had several experiences where I saw somebody struggling with something and they had that gray, angry, like, don't mess with me vibe going on. And then you help them, and all of a sudden, it's like, ping, their eyes get sparkly again. The color comes back to their face. And I've had four separate people say this to me after helping them with simple things, everything from helping somebody into the UPS store with a big box to helping some folks who got run off the road in their motorcycle, and had people pass by them for 30 minutes before I stopped and helped them get their bike out. And these two other incidents, all four people said almost exactly the same thing. And it brought great joy to my heart and great sadness. And they said, thank you so much. We didn't think people like you existed anymore. Now, that's sad because we live in a world now where there's so much divisiveness and we're purposely being divided, and now more than ever, if we are going to protect the purity of my father's vision, as a birthday gift to him, is to you know try to truly, one of the things he taught me was to try and truly see through everyone's eyes. Whether you're tracking an animal, you become the animal you're tracking. You see from that animal's eyes. Why do you think he had us all jumping around doing the gait patterns during the standard class? Wasn't so much to learn the way the animal moved, but the world looks a lot different when you're crawling around on all fours versus when you're standing on two legs. So, we become the animals we track. We try to become the people that we're attempting to help caretake and truly experience what they're going through emotionally. Regardless of what we may think, we may think that that what their issue is silly, that is very real to them. And I still, I will still be learning about my father and from my father's lessons for my entire life, because that was the beauty of him and his teaching style. Is I've never met somebody who's able to teach a really valuable lesson while playing a really horrible prank on somebody at the same time. I won't share that story publicly. Some of you may know, but he had this brilliant gift of uh you know just getting across more in a single sentence, be it his written work or in talking, than most people can in pages of dialogue. So thank you, Dad, for those gifts of turning me into and turning us into students of life. Though if you're here right now, you're not content with letting life just kind of pass you by, stuck in that rut that so many of our fellow Homo sapiens are. We know there's more. We know that there's something to be said about always being a student and always looking for the hidden lessons, seeing with things more than our eyes, hearing with things other than our ears, really putting the quest back in questions. And one of his most profound teachings of all, of course, is the concept of the sacred question. What happened here, or what's happening here? What is this teaching me? And then John reminded me when I was down hanging out with them to add, what am I missing? to the sacred question as well. And my goal in life is to open people's eyes to the beauty that is all around them. And I do that through my photography and my video work. People think they see a picture of a spider and they think that I traveled to the Amazon rainforest. And I'm like, no, I took that photo a mile from here. And there are things that beautiful around here. And I'm like, look around. All you have to do is open your eyes and look. And this one particular woman, it's one of my favorite stories. I took a photo of a rainbow orb weaver spider, and she comes. I had a table set up at a farmer's market. She comes like charging across the field right to my table, and she grabs a photo, and she was like, "Oh my God!" And I think she asked if I got the photo in Papua New Guinea, and I was like, "Well, that's a good geographical choice." But and I was like, no, I actually took that about a mile from here. It's a pretty common spider for Oregon. And she said that same thing to me. There are things that beautiful around here. And I'm like, well, yeah, there's things that beautiful everywhere. You just have to learn to look small, as I call it. Look at the small things. Don't just, if you're always looking in your phone or always looking at a 45-degree angle to the ground, there's this whole world going on around us. And I showed her wide angle vision. And then she proceeded to abandon her family for about 45 minutes and go around to all the different garden beds. And she was like picking through the vegetation. And one thing I've learned in the world of business is there are many types of profit, and while we all need money to survive, changing her perspective, even though she didn't buy that print, um, uh, that experience for me as an educator was worth more than its weight in gold. And, those moments when I do things, when I go out into the world and deploy the lessons that my father gave to all of us, and things click into place, allowing us to take that next step up in our own personal growth, so that we can be better community members, be better friends, be better partners, be better educators, be better students. Um, so yeah, that's the tracking and awareness in him always, from as far back as I can remember, he was always hammering me with that. And because he knew that there was going to come a time when I was going to need those skills. And that time has been these last couple years. And going through a lot of my family memorabilia, I mean, I have lots of stuff. I mean, I'm talking everything from like old tax records to things, and I can see where my parents made a lot of the same errors that I did, when they started tracker school, back in the day. And I'm like, man, wish I would have fully looked through this stuff like 4 years ago. I could have saved myself a whole bunch of trouble. Um, you know, if you watch the video that I put out a while back, I titled it "From My Dad to My Father." Um, I'll explain that real quick, and I'll open it up for stories in a minute. But there's a very distinct point when I when my dad went from being my dad, which is, always had the shit-eating grin on his face, was in the moment, was happy, playful, to my father, who was, kind of closed off and had that, don't mess with me vibe, and just kind of paced and brooded at the back of whatever large vehicle he had at the time. Um, and it's unfortunate because that point in space and time when he transitioned to being a bit more closed off, I read a journal entry that he penned, sometime in the early 80s, to where, because like me, didn't read the fine print, didn't pay attention to details, he essentially gave his publishers the ability to rewrite anything he sent them. And they therefore kind of built him up to be this superhuman guy. and he felt that he needed to live up to that, and he was really afraid of being seen as a human being. He was, terrified to make mistakes and have people judge him on that. And it's a shame that that happened, because um, I feel like, you know, and once again, can't change the past, but I just wish he would have read that small print and if if I told you how many of his books have been printed in total, and the amount of revenue that was generated, it was so bad because he was just young and naive in the ways of business, and there are people who take advantage of that. And um but yeah, the fact that he one thing I really wanted to develop when I left was the ability to cope with that stuff, so I didn't have to isolate. Those of you here who are actively my students, you all have my personal phone number. You can call me anytime, and I'm happy to talk. And I'm kind of the opposite. I'm more than approachable. Um, and because I want people to see me, and not only as a teacher but as a student and somebody who is makes plenty of mistakes. Hell, I've been doing bow drill for 43 years, and I think it was about 8 months ago I botched bow drill in front of a group of 8-year-olds. I felt like an idiot, and the reason why, because I was rushing, and I thought in my hubris that I've been doing bow drill forever. I don't need to prepare, and didn't realize I left my spindle outside in the rain, and my fireboard was inside, and I tried to make it work, and I got my ass handed to me in front of a group of kids, and I could hear my dad chuckling in the background, over my shoulder. That's why he would often say, whenever you're going to demonstrate something, mess it up the first time, make a mistake right off the bat, so that people you know don't judge you for it if you do make a mistake. But so I want to open up. Tell anybody who is part of the Tracker family have a particular story or thought they want to share about my father for his birthday?
Yeah, I do.
Go for it, Mr. John. I'm gonna
All
put my
right.
jacket on.
Yeah. Um, I was thinking about what lessons that I learned from Tom that are still teaching me right now, teaching me today. And, I'll go back to when I was like 15. This is when I remembered what happened. Because the years before that, I think I was a little clueless as to exactly what this guy was doing. The breadcrumb trail of coyote teachings he was setting up for me that really shaped, who I am today. Um, he was so I'll just say, hey Jorge, nice to see you. um, he was so I would say exacting, like surgical in the way he planted these little coyote bombs to go off in my life as a kid. And when I look back at that, I'm kind of amazed at it, really. I've known a lot of mentors. I've been with lots of good teachers, lots of great teachers all over the world, and I don't think I've ever met anyone with that level of, hmm, I would almost call it like, you know, it's highly gifted mentor. His coyote teaching skills are, I think we could write thousands of pages on it collectively. And I don't think people celebrate that enough. And so, I got approached. I was helping my friend Craig with his book launch back in May of last year. And I met his publisher and publicist, et cetera, et cetera. And I was just helping. Sarah and I were driving Craig around. We rented a big van because Craig's a big guy. So he would be comfortable. And we drove him from Santa Cruz to San Francisco. And then we were just kind of there to service. And the publicist kept saying to me, oh, there's no, oh, can't we pay for your hotel room? I said, no, it's already paid for and it's a tax write-off. Please, yeah, don't worry. I didn't, I'm not looking for anything. I just want to help my brother Craig. She's like, oh, there must be something we can do for you. I'm like, I mean, you're already doing it for me. You're letting me spend time with Craig. He lives in South Africa. I hardly get to see him, and I love this guy. And she said, okay, well, you're being very generous, but aren't you an author? Didn't you write What the Robin Knows? And I said, yeah. She said, well, you must have another book in you. I said, I wasn't thinking about it actually, and I'm really pretty busy. I'm not thinking about writing another book. That's such an undertaking. And she said, yeah, but if you had a book, what would it be? I said, well, Tom reached out to me. Tom Brown, she didn't know Tom. I had to say Tom Brown, my mentor, blah, blah, blah. Oh yeah, Craig speaks really highly of Tom. Well, he reached out to me in like 2019 and he said, let's write a book together. And I said, what do you have in mind, Tom? He said, well, you write one chapter about what you experienced as my victim. And then, you reflect on it and what happened when you went on that journey. And then I'll write the next chapter about what I was thinking when I did that for you. And I thought, oh my God, that would be such a priceless book, And I said, yeah, let's do that. And then in 2020, we were going to go meet with his publisher, but then COVID happened and we didn't do it. And then, I guess his energy just started to wane, right? And we didn't really follow up on it, but I just kept thinking about it. And I started writing that book in my head, and I said to this publicist from the publishing company, I said, I think the book would be a book lifting up this man's incredible mentoring ability and what that did for me, because I think that needs to be celebrated. Because, the tracker does that, how grandfather did that for Tom, and I just thought, well, I should do that. That would be a gift for everyone, and I said to her, ironically, and I'd really like to write that book before he passes away, because I don't want it to be about this great guy that used to be here, and boy, wasn't he great, and here's a cool book about him. I want to do that while he's still alive, so I can really honor him and say thank you, and so I decided what I would do to get that book out in a hurry was to hold 6 recording sessions for 2 hours each, where I would just tell stories to a live audience on Zoom that I would like to include in the book. And I got through session 5, and the stories were so rich and they were just so moving for me to share and remember. And then on between session 5 and session 6, Tom passed away, and I felt, oh, he never got to hear those stories. He never got to hear that, and it kind of like stopped me in my tracks. So that's probably stopped all of us, but I'm really thankful that happened and that I am working on this book, But I want to say that when I was 15, he said to me one day, I had bumped into an experience, a mystery that I couldn't solve. And he had taught me, go through the field guides, do your best, experiment, see what you can figure it out. And if you can't figure it out, well, then, you just have to surrender, just basically ask the question and surrender. And I, didn't really buy that. I was a bit of a reductionist, sort of rational kind of guy, didn't believe in, anything spiritual. At 15, I just, didn't know what to think. But I actually bumped into the answer. And the answer came, I was just wandering. I was on my way from one place to another, and I definitely had that, I had a destination. I was going from my house to a particular location to catch tadpoles to feed to my turtles. And I suddenly remembered what he said, that, once I surrender, then just trust when your body pulls you in one direction or another. And so I followed that, and it led me to some the mark on the ground, this mysterious scratch mark that I couldn't make sense of, that kept showing up every 22 inches. Well, I followed it. I'm like, oh, here's that mark again, and I followed it down into the woods, and then it went down into the creek. And when it got to the creek, the soil was soft enough where I could discern that these were raccoon tracks, and that what I was seeing was a raccoon with one broken foot that probably got caught in a leg hold trap, and then escaped, but it forever mangled its foot. So it was leaving these 2 scratch marks every time that foot touched the ground. And I went back and I told Tom the story, and he said, "What do you think of that?" And I said, "Yeah, that's such an interesting coincidence, you know?" And he said, "Coincidence?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "John, when the 99th coincidence turns one," oh, he said, "You're saying that a lot lately. Did you notice that? You're saying coincidence a lot lately." I said, "Yeah, I am." He says, "Well, when that 99th coincidence turns 100, will you still call it a coincidence?" And I said, "Probably." And he said, "Well, do me a favor. Get yourself a notebook and write on the front of it, quote unquote, coincidence journal. And I want you to write down 99 of those. And when the 99th turns 100, I want you to come see me and let's talk about it." You know, so that particular teaching, because of course the 99th turned 100, he had already opened the tracker school. So it was probably 78 when I went up there with my notebook. And I told him the story of the 99th turning 100. And he said, "Wow, you really did that?" And I said, "Yeah, you know," and I had my journal and everything. He said, "Wow, I didn't think you were going to do that." I said, "Well, you know, you challenged me. I love these challenges, you know." And he said, "Well, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go through that entire notebook. I want you to read every one of those stories. And I want you to come back and tell me, what do they all have in common? You know, what's the lesson here?" You know, and the simple answer was, well, they do all have something in common. You know, do that, put the question, put the search in research, as Tommy, you said earlier, be passionate about finding the answer, exhaust all physical possibility. When you can't solve it with all the possible physical experimentation and research, well, then ask the track and let it go. And then trust while you're wandering, walk towards, don't walk to, and just the answer will come. He says, it might not come tomorrow, it might not come today, it could come in 2 years or even 10 years. He said, I've had these kinds of things come to me in 20 years. He says, but you just have to let it go and trust. And I'm telling you right now that that particular pattern has served my life in a zillion ways, way beyond tracking. And I use that every single day to this moment. And you know, it's quite an extraordinary gift that he gave us by teaching us that pattern. And I'm sure a lot of you also use that pattern in your lives. But um, you know, Sarah and I just love wandering with questions. We get to these questions. Let's go for a wander. Like, it's not like let's go to the pond. Let's go towards the pond and just see where we feel called. And we always end up discovering something cool, finding an answer to a question. Discovering a species that we didn't even know lived around here, and then figuring out what it is, and then being able to catch it on the trail camera and that kind of stuff. It's just it's an endlessly fun. And it just makes us feel so alive. And I just love that. And Tom, thank you so much for that. And I wish I could have given you a complete book before you passed. But I'm going to send it to you in spirit, and hopefully you'll enjoy it.
No,
That's
he
good.
knows. He knows.
He does. Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for catching that story. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing, John. Does anyone else have a quick story they want to share? And I'm gonna take a short break because I want to go grab some stuff of his I want to read.
Well, I do, if that's okay.
Go for it.
Well, it's going back to 1982, the first time I took his course. July of 1982. And we were doing where you're blindfolded and you're walking and going all through that. Can't remember whether we had a rope with us or not. It's been that long. And I'm old. Yeah, so Tom kept saying a few things about, he says, it's hot out. Why don't you put your suit on, your bathing suit on, your swimsuit? Why? Who cares? You know what? Forgetting that at the time, one of his instructors was Joe McDonald, who was like 6 foot, close to 7 foot. He was tall. Well, it turns out he took us right through the middle of the pond at the original tracker farm. So everybody hit the water. I kind of got it right before I hit the water. So I knew, hold on and swim. And when we got out and I was walking back to my area, I said, he says, "You've got a warped sense of humor," I told him. It's just a funny story, but I still
Uh,
remember that. And that's coming from New Jersey, which I do. I had that kind of sense of humor. And there was something about when I read his article in the Reader's Digest. I think I went out the same day to the bookstore and bought his book. And up until we had our fire 20 years ago, I had all his books. I don't know if I still have them all. A lot of stuff got lost, but so it's always stuck with me, even though I basically raised a family. I didn't have the luxury of just doing a lot on my own. Now I'm getting to where I probably can do some stuff on my own. And now I'm at the age where I'm pretty old now. Yeah. I got him beat by a year. In March, I'll be 76. So there was just
Thank
something
you for
about him
sharing.
being from New Jersey. I always felt a connection. Still not 100% why. Obviously why, because I
Mm.
ran into you and
Yeah.
yeah, and we kind of bounce off each other.
Yep.
Who's had the worst day?
Yep.
So
You,
I definitely understand, but that's about all I got for now. I'm sure I've got some other things, but
Mm.
they'll have to wait another
yeah,
day.
it's funny that the New Jersey sense of humor out here on the West Coast, a lot of people just don't understand it.
It's
So
kind of
yeah,
weird. Yeah,
yeah.
it is. It's kind of when I hear somebody else that doesn't have that sense of humor, I mean, that has that sense of humor and go, "Are you from New Jersey?" Some don't, some aren't from New Jersey, but I'd like to think it's pretty much a Jersey thing.
And we used to, funnily enough, we would get more students every year from like Germany, Japan, all over the place than New Jersey. You
Yeah.
know, only a very small portion of students actually lived in Jersey. All right, so we're going to take a short 5-minute break or so here while I go get these writings that I wanted to read and share with you. And I'll share those and then open it up for a few more stories. So, yep, just 5 minutes. We'll be right back. Hold tight.
Hey, Jamie, can you hear me? You're muted.
Yeah,
Turn off
duh.
your mute.
Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
recognize you as soon as I saw you. Go, well, your hair is a little different.
It's a little gray now.
Yeah.
I have your books.
Oh,
I have your magazine and I probably your Reader's Digest.
okay. I
Because
better
you-
break into that.
You left it for me to hold
Uh-huh.
after the fire in your house.
Yeah.
So I still have it. And I didn't know where you went.
Well, we're
And
still in the same place.
now you're here and now
yeah.
I can get your address.
Last time I talked to you was right after we moved in because you called me and said, "Can you use a king size bed?" That's when they were breaking up the farm where it was last in Asbury. And I thought, I don't have you didn't have any way to get it here, and I didn't have any way to get it.
Right.
But yeah, I just kind of wondered. It's been was we've been up here 20 years as of December 23rd.
And where are you?
We're in Pike County in Pennsylvania,
Oh, you're in
uh,
Pennsylvania. Okay.
town of Greentown, northeastern Pennsylvania. But I could certainly give you that address. I'm going through that kind of stuff now, and it's a whole. I think I couldn't find how to get on here. I finally got on about 10 minutes into the program, and then I saw you, and I go, "Hey, I know him."
I'm like, is that Jamie?
Yeah, well, back then my name was. I don't know if I had
It was
changed.
different. Your last name was different then.
It's my originally was last name was Murray. Now it has been.
Okay.
Well, my two kids my twins that are.
Oh, your kids.
Oh, I have 6 from my first family.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the twins, They were about, the last time I was there was when we were breaking up the farm. And let's see, they were, I don't know how old, they were about 9 or 10, but they're going to be 30 this year. So where did the time go? Are do you have any more that, I know you had one. Do you have any more?
I got your East West magazine and
Uh-huh.
maybe your Reader's Digest, maybe,
Yeah.
but everything's in a box somewhere. Yeah,
Oh, cool.
yeah.
Well,
So it
how do
looks
you
like
find me?
Tommy's ready to go. You ready to go?
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm on Facebook. I'm online, or go through track.
I can
I'll
I'll
give you
connect
my
you guys.
address.
All right.
Hi,
Bye.
welcome back, everybody. So yeah, I just wanted to run up. So, Joe, has a large collection of tracker memorabilia. I have a large collection. I mentioned the illustration auction earlier. Um, However, the majority of the stuff that I have is going to be digitized, and I'm turning it into what I'm calling for now, the code name, Digital Tracker Museum, which will be a separate website. It'll be free for all, and it'll essentially be a digital timeline where you can click on a decade and then a year, and then I'm gonna scan in photos. Not only do I have all my own photos in a box of about 5,000 slides, and I've probably got, 5,000 plus photos there are many people in this area. Um, in the early days of the school, my dad would come out here to Washington State or Oregon and teach quite a bit. And so I've since connected with some of those elders who have given me collections of photos from their classes from back in the day. And so yeah, that's one of the many things I'm working on to preserve a lot of this stuff. And as I've mentioned, you guys know my dad was a consummate journaler. I mean, I have writings of his that are on like scrap of a paper bag, from judging by his handwriting, way, late 70s, all the way to his legal journal pads. I have stuff from books. I have my parents' wedding vows right here. Um, I've got the letter that my dad was writing to my mom when he thought he was going to be late to me being born, and because he was on book tour for the tracker, and he did end up making it in time, but he was kind of writing his his you know his sorry I'm not there for the birth of Tommy. So I'm going to quiz everybody. I'm going to read from this original old school dot matrix style printout, and let's see who and you could put it in chat what book this is from. Yeah, I remember my father as a kid. Some of my earliest memories are him sitting in front of the box computer with the green screen where the keyboard like flipped up into it, the K Pro, I think it was, and then printing out just the endless sheets of white paper for his manuscripts. So here we go. So yeah, whoever can whoever guess what book this comes from, feel free to put it in chat. I'll only read a few pages. Now keep in mind too that, as I mentioned, a lot of his books were heavily altered by the publishers. So if you ever plan on writing a book, make sure you read the fine print. The first rays of morning sun dance across the lawns, causing them to glitter like some greenish glass that appears semi-transparent. Droplets of dew sparkle and dance with fiery rainbows, and small bejeweled spider webs look carelessly tossed across the blades like tiny hammocks. There is no apparent movement in the grass, for the tiny inhabitants are still chilled by last night's cold. A robin alights momentarily on the shady lawn, then hops across to a sunsplash. There, on a warm puddle of light, he pauses, cocking his head as if to listen or get a better view of the ground. Insects tell him that the first insects or worms will appear from this area as the sun stirs their inner fires and their cool blood warms to movement. Except for the robin, all seems frozen in time, dew and sunshine. The robin takes a few quick jumps forward, pauses for an instant, then pecks at the ground. There's a slight movement in the grass, and the robin pecks again, this time pulling a struggling worm from the earth. A few quick bounces, and the robin is airborne, heading back to its nest, probably to feed its young. A good tracker knows that if a robin eats the worm there on the ground, there's probably no young. However, flying off with the worm firmly grasped in the beak means the young ones somewhere need feeding. At this point, I watch the flight of the robin, which will usually head straight back to the nest unless it suspects a predator is about. By following the line of flight from a hidden position and repeatedly watching the robin collecting and feeding, the nest can easily be located and studied. At this time, I can either go back to the lawn for more study or get involved in the robin's activities. If I choose to stay with the robin for a while, I will make it a project that will last several days. For a long time, I will watch the robin feeding her young from a distance. I do not want to alarm the mother nor interfere with her feeding schedule, but little by little, I will move closer to the nest. This could take quite some time and a lot of patience, but it is well worth the effort. If the procedure moves into the second day, I will repeat the first day's efforts, only a little more quickly. With patience and showing no threat to the robin, I will soon be accepted as part of the landscape, and the robin will go about its business as if I were not there. Anyway, Field Guide. Yeah, so this is actually the title. I didn't give out the title of the chapter, is Lawns, and I think it is there's a chapter on it, and somebody might correct me, in the City and Suburban, and then I think the Field Guide for Children. But yeah, this is I think this is one chapter, two or three chapters from the original book. One thing I'm currently auctioning off is a copy of the Scout, an uncorrected proof of the Scout. And in comparing it with the Way of the Scout, which the book became, you can see the differences, where things were edited and not always for the best. So yeah, it's so funny. While came up here to house sit for my friend before he got back, I kind of laid out this timeline across the whole bottom floor of his house, with photos and writings. And then I would just sit, and for 4 days straight, I just paced back and forth along the line, kind of arranging things and reading things and rereading things, and then finding new things. And, just putting together this picture of and balancing it off my own experience of what it was like to be him back then, where he literally, as he said, went from being a big dumb hick in the Pine Barrens to all of a sudden being on Johnny Carson and David Letterman. In fact, I have a photo upstairs of him getting his makeup done just before going on Johnny Carson. And then I've got a picture of my mom and my dad and Frank and Karen Sherwood. And Frank looks like he's off the set of Miami Vice with his white sport jacket on. And but yeah, coming to terms with going from being, not recognized for much, all of a sudden being exposed to the world. I can imagine what that must have been like. And, I understand a lot more after reading some of his early writings, about what that did to him in many ways. And, um, once again, I've got my parents' wedding vows right here. There is one in particular I wanted to read. So yeah, once again, I have so many of these little scraps. I could literally put a book together of his writings, just from these, but I'm going to make them available, in digital version. Some of them I'll auction off, but yeah, eventually they'll all be viewable by all on this digital museum. Some of them are like the writing is so faded. You got see. So pre-dawn pine barrens alive with the voices of whippoorwills. Slowly other voices echoed through the forest until the it's wow. I gotta like turn it just the right angle in the light. The stars ebb and ebb on the bright horizon, flowing like golden fingers, fondling the cool abyss of the forest. Renewal, love, and inner harmony to the finest degree. Bygone days, oh wait, bygone days echoed through my mind as the pines carried me back to my childhood. The constant and spoken and unspoken so many truths and filled me with their strength and wisdom. The good earth reached deep within me and gave me of its power. Wow. Some of these are like, Dead Sea Scrolls esque. Yeah, there's one thing I really admire about my father, and it is his flawless penmanship. I have never seen somebody be able to write a full whiteboard full of material and it all have it be perfectly straight lines. When I write on the whiteboard, they tend to like slope off to the right or to the left. And I've always tried to, not duplicate his handwriting style, but obviously the digital age has a lot of people don't write anymore. And that's why I have a little paper tablet called a Remarkable. And it's basically like a Kindle, but for writing. And I can type on it. And, I've been working on my penmanship to try to get up to his level so that people can actually understand what I'm writing. Here's another one. And this is a kind of a play off something he says in one of his lectures of the standard class. There's a dimension beyond words and logical thought that cannot be explained because there are no words that can define that dimension. And he was the absolute king of just, as I mentioned, being able to say things in a few sentences that many people couldn't express in entire pages. And that's why I want to preserve a lot of this stuff in its original original state, so that you can see these people or his writings of the time and how beautiful they really are. And I'm still going through and cataloging and finding awesome things to read. So let's open it up for another stories. Anybody have a story they want to share about a particularly interesting memory with my father or tracker school? Anybody?
I can share.
Go for it.
So, my story starts with my father picking up Tom Brown's book, maybe after the Reader's Digest article, hard to say. And I read a lot as a child, like a lot. And so, even though it seems ridiculous, my father handed me that book, The Tracker, when I would turn 10 years old. And he also handed me another book, a fictional book that is probably lesser well known in some areas, more well known in others. the Clan of the Cave Bear series. Also, a very interesting book to hand a 10-year-old.
Good.
And those books gave the parts of my brain that asked my parents endless questions vocabulary and contact points for all the things I sensed and felt and knew, but could not put into words or writing or any type of human emotions. And what does a 10-year-old learn from those books? Most people imagine playing in the mud, playing with sticks, watching insects. But I work backwards, and I learned a lot of the spiritual skills first, which was really good because I would need them less than 2 years later when a horse almost killed me and I almost died. And my parents had to fight to save me. And I had to relearn how to walk again. I had to relearn how to do everything. And during that time, at 12 years old, being bedbound, having almost all my limbs broken so that you can't move, you're imprisoned in your body. I had all of these skills to build internal galaxies, not worlds. And without that book, without my dad feeling the call, even though he could never make it to the school, he never made his dream of meeting Tom Brown Jr., but he got to watch me do it. He drove me to Kotef. He got to hear about me meeting Tom Brown Jr. And so he vicariously lived his dream through me. And in the same time, gave me the very skills that I would need to stay alive, including when he was the person that said, "Hey, let's see if we can sit you up. Let's see if we can just carry you to the car and not wait for the ambulance because it's so far away," because we were that remote. And it's hard. It's hard to watch your child lay on the ground for hours waiting for an ambulance. You need to do something. I already had that internal fortitude from reading those books at 10 years old, that internal knowing, no, do not move me. Do not pick me up. And in that moment, I had to become everybody else's teachers because they didn't know. And I was picked up by the ambulance and I did make a recovery and I did learn how to walk again. And I sent myself to Kotef. And then I eventually got to tracker school. I don't do most of the physical skills. I can't anymore. But that book, every skill that I've learned, the physical skills I used to be able to do really well, they're all right here. And they all immediately transfer to the next areas in my life. And so, as part of Tom Brown Jr.'s birthday celebration, I have so much gratitude as his student and as a friend to T3 and Tom. I have so much compassion and empathy as someone who has also lost both parents and grandparents and is the eldest. And there isn't anybody else left to hold these celebratory memories with because they're all gone in our direct family lines. And that is a type of isolation and loneliness should it occur before you're an older adult. It is very hard to put into words and meet that person. So
Thank you so much.
I'm so happy that I could fit this in between my appointments and be here in person as your friend to
Thank
celebrate
you,
the
Joni.
amazing man that is our teacher, our mentor, and your father. Thank you.
Thank you, Joni. Joni is a very good friend and confidant, and uh, we think a lot alike, and she's helped me through working through many issues. Thank you for being a mentor to me, Joni, and helping me grow and be a better human being. So, speaking of the book, The Tracker, here I hold in my hand, Dear Tom and Judy. This is dated March 1st, 1988. Just a note to let you know that we'll be doing another 10,000 copy reprint of The Tracker, which will bring the total in print to 191,912 copies. Congratulations on the continued success of this title. So that Make the Tracker has been printed in, we got 6 or 7 different languages, and I am discussing the potential of turning some of his books into audiobooks, because apparently nobody reads real books anymore, unless it's a kid's book or a self-help book, or you're like one of those people that writes murder mysteries. Apologies for the background noise. But yeah, my dad did a copy of or did a reading of Grandfather many years ago, and I'm as I go back through his books, I have first edition #1 copies of many of his books. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I will never part with those because they all have really long dedications to me or my mom on the inside cover. Um, but yeah, I get so many calls about his books and how to get them, and so there's hopefully things in the works. I'll have some more news about that at some point. But yeah, I'd really like to try to read his the main books: Tracker, Vision, Search, Grandfather, Awakening Spirits, in audio format. I have a really good friend who's got a really nice professional recording studio in Illinois, um, and he's willing to do a lot of the work as a thank you to my father for changing his life. He's a friend of mine who was actually head-on collision with a tractor trailer and literally mangled him completely inside the car. And they first said he was going to die, and then he fought through that, and then they said, oh, he's going to be a quadriplegic, and he fought through that, and he taught himself how to walk again, and started a recording studio. Is always his dream, and he's one of the toughest humans I know on earth. It's similar to your story, Joni, and so many others out there. There's so many people in the Tracker family who I know who have uh you know just had life transforming events after reading the books and not being able to make it to a class, and then just making it, because once again, faith, as my father said, faith is the most powerful force on earth. And if you have faith in something and you believe in it with all your core, you can manifest that. He also would go on to say that our physical mind is our greatest enemy, and at the same time is our greatest ally. Right? We can do things that would be considered superhuman. Control our heart rate, our respiration, do some of these superhuman type feats, with body control. And we can't gain those layers of teachings without self-awareness and awareness in general. we're led to believe that, we're stuck inside this little box of right angles, right? Humans aren't meant to be in boxes of right angles. We are meant to be out in nature. We are meant to talk to the trees and the plants and the animals, because in my mind, being that all of us, and by us, I collectively mean the human and more than human world, from the complex all the way down to the single cell organisms, we are all born of the earth, and we all return to the earth one day to, feed the cycle. Therefore, I am of relation to everything that I share space with. And once you spend enough time out in nature, developing that connection, you can listen to I know there's weather moving in because the birds are especially active today, which is usually a sign that there's a cold snap coming or potentially some snow. And in fact, we are due to get potentially some snow here in the next couple days. And these are all just, once again, tie it back to my father. Things I often wonder what my life would have been like, had I been, grown up as somebody else, or if I didn't decide to go into nature education, which by not doing it earlier, I paid a pretty steep price in not living your vision and trying to do something else. The creator will kick your ass in all manner of ways. Um, and that brings me to a story I want to tell. So there were two, John talked about coincidence earlier. So I like in the movie V for Vendetta, he says a line. He says, "I do not believe in coincidence. Coincidence is, there no such thing as coincidence, only the illusion of coincidence." So in other free casts, I've shared a few stories about what led me back to tracker school after um, I got clean off drugs, thanks to some good people in the tracker community. And I felt I needed to go kind of on a walkabout of sorts, akin to what my father did after learning with Stalking Wolf. So real quick, I'll rehash the first story. So I had just hitchhiked into Asheville, North Carolina to meet up with a friend of mine who I was going to hang out with for a while before making my way north to Vermont. And he was a drum maker. So that night I got there, we hop in his car to go to this drum circle, and I see this woman at the back of her car with her dog, and my inner vision just like is like a sledgehammer in the chest. You have to talk to this woman. So I mentioned to my friend John Paul, I'm like, "Hey, see if you can find a place to park. I want to go talk to that woman." And he's like, "Oh yeah, sure." And I'm like, "No, it's not like that at all. You wouldn't understand." So anyway, we go around the block and we park and we come back by and she's gone. And but that feeling is still there. And I'm like, once again, I'm just going to go towards the drum circle. So we're walking towards the drum circle, and it's in this little park in downtown Asheville. And I look at the cafe across the street, and here's this woman, got her dog tied up. So, I'm dirty, kind of street kid looking with dreadlocks and all that good stuff. And there's this very proper lady. And I'm like, how in the hell am I going to go? I'm like asking the creator, I'm like, how in the hell am I going to approach her and talk to her? She's going to like throw things at me. So the dog, popped in my hand. So I cross the street and I make my way up and I start petting her dog and we start talking, and she invites me to sit down. And I noticed she's writing in a journal. And long story short, we were chatting, and inner vision tells me to ask her about her journal. And I said, "If you don't mind me asking, what are you writing about in your journal?" And she said, "Oh, I'm just writing about how I've been in Asheville here for 2 years. I'm a teacher, and I'm trying to save money, and I just took a second job as a bartender so I can save money to go to this guy Tom Brown school. Have you ever heard of him before?" And I was like, "Yeah, I have heard of him, in fact." And, I told her who I was, and she was like, "You're lying." I had to show her my ID. So that was the first uh, kind of big clue that it was my time to return home. The second one occurred a few months later. I was in Amherst, Massachusetts, and I was hitchhiking back up to Brattleboro, Vermont. And normally that is a really easy hitchhike because Amherst has 5 colleges in it. The Vermont border is right there. It's only like 45 minutes. And every time I had done it before then, it was like 5 minutes and you got a ride. And I was this one particular hot ass summer day, I was sitting out there for hours. And that was actually, right at the start of summer, early, late spring. And just waiting, and people are passing me by, and I'm like, am I covered in animal poo or something here? Like, why? This didn't make any sense. And all of a sudden, this like red hatchback comes and parks, and I'm like, oh, thank God. So I go up to the passenger door and I got my pack and I open the door and I'm like, oh, thank you so much. I've been out here for hours. And he's like, don't worry about it, brother. Just throw your stuff in the back seat. And I flip up the seat lever and the seat slides forward. And I go to throw my pack in and I see a bow drill kit. And then I see a notebook that says standard class. It was like spring of 99. And I was like, oh, you got a bow drill kit back here. He's like, yeah, I just came back from Tom Brown's school taking a standard class. Have you ever heard of him before? And I was like, funny enough, yeah, I have. And long story short, as soon as I got back to Brattleboro, I got to where I was staying and I called my dad and I was like, Dad, I'm ready to come back now. The creator has told me. Um, but yeah, so that guy had just literally he was driving back to Vermont from New Jersey. He had just taken his standard class. And one thing I aim to do with as part of this digital museum, I'm making a biography about my father, and I'm going to be driving around collecting interviews. And one thing the last 16 years away from the school has shown me is the profound influence that my father's teachings have had um, on millions of people indirectly, directly hundreds of thousands of people, but indirectly, when you think of people who have gone on to integrate the teachings and then help somebody else, and they may not have no idea, tertiary person might not have any idea about my father or the teachings, but their life was bettered by somebody who was. And I've ran into so many people, um, just everyday folks who, either just simply by reading one of his books or taking a class or several classes have gone on to dramatically alter their lives and become their ideal selves, which is what I try to do with all of my students and myself. Is I think if we're put on the planet for one thing as individuals and as family, is to become better versions of our parents. Learn from the good things, reuse those, enhance them, learn from the bad things, toss those aside, and therefore you become the next evolution of your mother and your father. And I've just I used to go and teach at a lot of primitive skills gatherings, and I would never use my last name. I would always just put Tom as teaching stalking and movement um at 3 o'clock. And then inevitably somebody who had taken a class with me throughout the course of the gathering would come up and be like, you're Tom Brown's son. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, you know, I thought your dad was a complete fraud asshole. And and then they would say something like, your class was freaking amazing. And I feel like I've made a grievous error in brushing him and his teachings off all of these years. And I'm like, "Mm." And it's one thing I take kind of sadistic delight in his, or I used to, um, is I'd see something online where Tom Brown Jr. never worked on any skills, and then I'd proceed to like upload photo after photo of him sinew backing bows, working hides, making bone flutes, making steam bent snowshoes, anybody who had the pleasure of taking an advanced skills class at the farm in the 80s, like the late 80s, those were some of my favorite classes. Um, it's just his just this global movement that he has spawned that we all carry some piece of. Um, as he says, I am forever the optimist. I like to prepare as if the world is going to go on forever, because it will. We may not, but nature will always win. It's clear as day. You walk through the city, dandelions growing through the sidewalk and all that. But I choose to honor my father's life, and as a gift to him, I will never give up in passing on the lessons that he gave to me, both, directly and indirectly. So much of his teachings, like many of you have said, that, the actual lesson didn't come fully clear until many years later. Um, and that's why certain things were really important to him, like the sit spot, and the blindfold, that and wide angle vision, three things that popped up in nearly every class he taught and nearly every class I teach, because, they are the keys to, awareness is the most important skill in life. And the first step to being aware is choice, and then learning to use our physical senses. And then once we heighten our physical awareness, then our instinctual awareness comes back to where we all of a sudden get that feeling that the deer is over there as opposed to over there. And then we can take it a step further and begin communicating with the landscape and sitting down and being able to ask, where is the closest water source? And just be led towards it. That's why with my photography, I love it because it's a perfect excuse to wander without time, destination, or expectation. I just go out there, and whatever lens I have on, and I make the best of it. And I use my photography to convey nature the way I see it and the way I was taught to see it, which is by looking small, but also not forgetting about the big picture either. Um, Moving forward in my work, I will be uh, putting my 2025 schedule back up here in the next couple of weeks, once I get a hold of the rest of my stuff. And I'm going to start integrating a lot of this stuff into my, both my free events and my online classes and my private online sessions as well. So I'm going to wrap it up here soon. Does anybody have any last stories they want to share? Anyone?
I have a small one.
Go for it, Jamie.
It happened, let's see, my son Michael was 41. He was born in 83. When he was 10 days old, they had to rush him back into the hospital because we didn't know why. So for however many days he was in the hospital, I was there. And I remember writing a letter to your dad, and I believe I still have the letter that he wrote back to me, telling him, this is what's going on. Because, as a, he was child number 5, but still, when you got an infant, you don't know what's going on. And I was always grateful for that. I believe I still have it in my closet. Although in my house everything is everywhere, but I thought that meant something to me. It might not have nothing big or earth shattering, but that he took the time to write back was something. Because back in those days, I was quite in awe of him, on the pedestal type of thing.
He was very, very, very particular. I remember in the early days about responding back to people. Um, and things were so much different back then. I used to dread the time of year when we'd have to make up the 5,000 brochures for the coming year's class schedule out. And it was like assembly line. I had to lick thousands of stamps and fold things. In fact, one of the things I'm going to be putting together, I have the blueprints for the original small pocket tracking field guide that my dad made that he would give out at certain classes. Um, and I'm going to reproduce that and make that available to people as well. Um, yeah. Anybody have anything? Anybody else have a story they want to share?
Um, yeah, I got
Go for it,
something.
Dave.
Thinking about how impactful your dad was, uh, and how many people he inspired. I mean, you with your teaching, John spoke earlier, Joe Lau, uh, and many, many, many more. I mean, think of how many schools have been started just because of what Tom did. And just reflecting on how thankful I am, a lot of us are, for that strength of that vision and how determined Tom was to really live his vision as he saw it. I don't think I've ever met anybody who was that focused on truly living his vision. I mean, I remember we started doing the online classes in, I think it was 2009, and so ever since then, for I don't know, was it 15 years or so? It was a lot of work traveling out to New Jersey and kind of grueling. And you know, when we first started, I had my kids were kind of young yet, and I remember your dad saying at one point, if it would make it easier, maybe we could start flying you out once in a while to do the online classes or something, because you only have so much time with your kids, and once they've grown up, then you don't get that time back. And I could see in his eyes, he never really, I don't know that he regretted it, because he was always living his vision, right? But it still hurt that he didn't spend as much time with you guys as he thought he would have wanted to. And and so that really hit me, how dedicated he was to that vision and what we can take from that. And that went on even up until the very last time I saw him. He was, in the hospital, and uh I hung out for, I don't know, 45 minutes, something like that. And thinking of what we talked about, even then, when he's like, I'm probably not going to get out of here. Uh, he knew something was up, right? But our conversation was all about online classes, ideas that he wanted to do yet. I mean, we talked about that stuff all the time, classes to do, and um, things that would get us out into the woods more. That was what he was passionate about up until the very end, always teaching. And it's not surprising that so many people have gone on from learning from Tom to follow their own vision in such a dedicated and passionate way. And I'm just really grateful for that. Yeah, happy birthday, old man. I miss you. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. I'll share a quick one. So it was an awareness class. I think it was 2006, and it was spring in the Pine Barrens, early summer, and we got this one particularly rainy day, and it was about 55, 60 degrees. So he sends the class out on an exercise, and they come back in, and he's show me hands on your results, and the results were obviously not up to his expectations. And he goes, "That's it, everyone, bathing suits and blindfolds now." It's drizzling, 58 degrees. And then he pulls me aside and he said, "I'm going to lead him down. I want you in the middle, and I want you to purposely stall and get separated from us, and then lead them around the back, and then pretend like you're lost in the middle of the swamp, and then give them a lesson about surrendering to nature." So I did just that. I like purposely stumbled a few times and held up and let them kind of disappear. And then I led us in circles. And I'm like, "Crap, guys, I hate to say this, but I've been in this part of the cedar swamp, and some people are actively like looking for trails, and some people just like sit down." And I'm like, "All right, everyone, come here, gather around, gather around." And I was like, "How many of you are cold right now?" And m- more than 2/3 of the people were like me. I was like, "How many of you, want to get back to camp right now and get changed in your warm clothes?" And about the same amount of hands went up. And I said, "You need to learn to embrace the suck." Because, as my dad said, those moments when you aren't safe, secure, comfortable in a good way, like being stuck in the middle of the swamp with me and, cold temperatures, those are the things where at the time that they may just be horrible and you might be miserable, but after the fact, you realize how alive you really were. And, so. Another important lesson he taught me was, you don't fight nature, you don't fight the cold, you don't fight the heat, you just allow it to pass through you. Because every time we put up that mental barrier saying, "Oh, it's rainy, I'm cold, it's rainy, I'm cold," you're going to be rainy and cold. So just by, surrendering to Earth Mother, and allowing that, acknowledge it for what it is, reality, not a 72 degree, bubble that many people live in. um, Enjoy that reality, embrace every moment of every day, because we aren't guaranteed a future. You know, a meteor could kill us all in the middle of the night. The alien overlords could come back to harvest us finally. Who knows? Um, the palm of the hand, right? All we are is now, and all we face are possible and probable futures. Based on our choices. And one thing that's worked for me a lot lately, and I'll offer this in closing, is, think back through your life and think about what at the time were seemed like small choices that drastically altered the course of your life. How if, you had chosen B over A, even though at the time it might not have made much different, it would have radically altered the course of your life. And that's one of the ways I learned from the past, is by going back and trying to find those crucial moments, and try to live all possible and probable futures, from the past moving forward, instead of just, making panic decisions or rushed decisions about things. Um, and just, it's all part of just being truly awake, aware, alive human beings. You know, we know there's more to life. That being said, I want to thank you all for joining me today. It's definitely a bigger turnout than I expected, and I will be. I'm going to be hosting these regularly. There's always going to be at least one free one once a month, but I'm going to kick that up a notch as I kind of, move through these auctions and some of these other teachings. And, I'll be putting my class schedule up for the year soon too, once I have all of my stuff back around and I know I can give a 100,000% experience, T3 experience. So that's just for the public classes though. But yeah, thank you all for being part of my chosen family. And most of all, thank you, Dad, for, providing me not only with the tools that I need to live, survive, and thrive, but also uh, this grand family of people who I share some of my fondest memories on Earth with. Are in this Zoom room right now, or were here at one point. And without him, or actually say without my mom's gentle nagging at him to write the tracker and start the school, you know, I wouldn't be here at this point in space and time with such wonderful people. And as I said, there are many different types of profit in this world, and this is priceless to me. You know, I'm a millionaire in spirit right now. Not even close in any other way, but you know, it's good enough for me, and it'll get me through the rest of the day and into tomorrow. So I'm honored to know all of you and call you friends. And if you ever have any questions or about anything, you know, contact me through the website or on social media. And yeah, I just want to keep doing what I do best, and I'll keep you all in the loop via, you know, these free live streams and my blog posts and things like that. So I will be posting the recording of this later today. I'm gonna actually create a YouTube playlist with all the free events. So I'm gonna upload the previous ones as well that I've done. But yeah, thank you all so much for being here today. Happy birthday, Dad. And I look forward to seeing some of you as I travel east. And yeah, don't be strangers. Thank you all so much. And I will let everyone know via email when I'm going to upload the recording. So have a wonderful afternoon, everybody. Peace
Thanks,
and
Pete.
love, joy and purpose to you all.